Hey there! Before we dive in, if you're new here, welcome to Stoic Tube, where we explore practical wisdom to help you live a better life. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community of seekers aiming to live more intentionally. Let's be honest, we're all lazy to some extent, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's natural. However, most of the time, it's those exact moments of laziness that make us overindulge in our bad habits. When we feel motivated, it's quite easy to do the things we want to do, even if we find them difficult otherwise. But when we're feeling stressed, tired, lazy, or when we've had a long day, we don't quite possess that enthusiasm to do something that requires effort. This is why, on those lazy days, we usually do whatever is most convenient or easy, whatever that might be. Generally, that's our default behavior. In technology, default means the way something works when you start using it. For example, when you buy a new phone, the settings are already set for you. You get a default ringtone, a preset wallpaper, etc. Unless you change those settings, default is what you're stuck with. Now, it's similar with our habits. We all have certain behaviors that we've adapted to that are standard to us. They've become our default, and we tend to perform them almost on autopilot. Those behaviors could be positive, like reading or learning new skills, or they could be negative, like smoking cigarettes and scrolling through social media all day. Instead of accepting all of our behaviors as defaults, we should re-examine the ones that are not serving us. Just like we can change our ringtone, we can also adjust our behavior. We can use our lazy nature to our advantage here. All we need to do is utilize the 20-second rule. In his book, The Happiness Advantage, Sean Accord describes his own struggle with behavior change. Sean had a very clear goal. He wanted to practice his guitar more often while reducing the amount of time he spent watching TV. However, he encountered a problem that many of us do whenever we want to change our behavior. Simply telling himself that he'll do it wasn't enough for him to actually do it. His guitar stayed in the closet, and watching TV remained his default go-to option. Sean recognized that he needed to disrupt his default behavior somehow. Otherwise, nothing would change. So he started looking for a solution. He realized that every time he wanted to play his guitar, he had to first go in the closet, get the guitar case out, and only once he got the guitar out of its case could he actually play. This all took roughly 20 seconds, but even this minimal effort that was required seemed to be enough to deter Sean from playing. After he became aware of this, he decided to move the guitar out of the closet and put it on a guitar stand in the living room instead. Now, whenever he wanted to play, he didn't have to search around the closet any longer. The guitar was already out of its case, and he was able to pick it up and start practicing without having to exert too much effort. Sean also applied a similar tweak to his TV habit. This time, he took the batteries out of the remote control and moved them to a drawer in another room. The next few nights, when he got home from work, and by default jumped on the couch to watch TV, he noticed that something was wrong. He kept pressing the on button on the remote, forgetting that he removed the batteries. Now, Sean didn't feel like getting up and retrieving the batteries from the other room, as this would take extra effort, so instead, he picked up and played his guitar, which was conveniently within arm's reach. This slight intervention allowed him to disrupt his default behavior, and as days passed, his urge to watch TV decreased, and playing the guitar started to feel more and more natural. Sean decided to call this behavioral approach the 20-second rule. Essentially, what he did was make playing the guitar 20 seconds easier while making watching TV 20 seconds harder. This strategy can be applied to pretty much any behavior you want to change. Of course, 20 seconds is just a suggestion and not an absolute number. In some cases, more than 20 seconds could be required, while in other cases, it could be less than 20. The point is to lessen the barriers between activities you want to do more often by making it more convenient for yourself to do them. While on the flip side, increase the obstacles between activities you want to stop participating in by making them more difficult to start. I know that this might sound simple and intuitive, but many of us don't utilize this, which is a shame since our surroundings are a huge contributing factor when it comes to our behavior. Usually, the most difficult part of any behavior is getting started, and the more activation energy an activity requires, the less likely you are to start, especially if you're feeling tired or lazy. When I say activation energy, I mean the amount of effort you need to exert before you can begin something. So for example, Watching TV usually takes very little activation energy. You just have to get the remote, jump on the couch, and you're set. Not much effort is required. Now, when it comes to working out, a little more activation energy is needed to begin. However, if you really think about it, lifting weights isn't that difficult. Sure, it's not as easy as laying on the couch, but the activity itself is not really that grueling. What really turns you off is the fact that you have so many steps to go through before you can begin working out. First, you need to get your gym bag ready, put on your shoes, then you need to drive to the gym, change your clothes, and so on and so forth. There's so many inconveniences standing in the way. But if you could skip some of those steps, or at least make them more tolerable, working out would become much easier, as there would be less activation energy required. And it's the same with pretty much any other activity. When it comes down to it, most of the activities aren't that difficult to do. They just require a little more effort for you to get started. But once you do start and get settled in, it's always very easy to continue, even if you don't necessarily find the activity as fun. So if you're able to lower the activation energy required to begin a certain behavior, your chances of doing what you want to do increase exponentially. This is especially important because even if you enjoy doing something, but there's a lot of friction in the way before you can begin, you're more likely to skip it and go do something easier instead. For example, I love going for long bike rides. It's one activity that always helps me unwind, especially if I'm feeling stressed or anxious. However, there's one problem I encounter every single time I want to go cycling. And that is the fact that I have to get my bike out of the basement first. The whole process takes me exactly 3 minutes, but sometimes it's enough to discourage me from going on that ride. Logically, this makes no sense. Why would 3 minutes of preparation deter me from doing something I know I enjoy? But like I said, humans are quite lazy, and we would rather do something that's easy and convenient instead of what we actually want to do. For this simple reason, I'm sometimes stressed for the entire day. This, of course, could easily be avoided by just going on that bike ride, which I know I would enjoy and it would help me de-stress. But at that moment, I would rather go for the default option, which is to spend my time thinking about all the horrible scenarios that will never happen instead of choosing a slightly less convenient option, which would solve the problem. I know all of this might sound silly, but it's just an example of how inconvenience can dictate our actions. By now, you probably understand how your surroundings affect your behavior, and you might even have a few ideas about how you can use all this information to your advantage. But just so you can get a better sense of it, here's a few common problems people face and how the 20-second rule can be applied to solve them. If you want to exercise more often, make sure your gym is as close as possible, preferably somewhere on your route to work. This way, you can stop there before you start your job or afterwards when you're on your way home. If you have to drive 1 hour somewhere every time you want to work out, you'll be more likely to skip it altogether, as that's a huge barrier. Plus, you want to make sure to get your gym bag ready ahead of time or whatever else is necessary for the workout of your choice. This way, when you're ready to exercise, you don't have to search and scramble around for all the necessary gear. Some people also like to sleep in their gym clothes, so when they wake up, they are already set. Basically, they skip the dressing up part when they wake up, since usually, in the morning, they don't really feel like exercising. But since they are already geared up, it's much easier to do so because there's one less barrier in the way. If you have trouble eating healthy, simply throw out all the unhealthy food in your house. This way, all that remains is healthy food. When you're hungry and you don't feel like cooking, of course, you will eat whatever is most convenient. Usually that's something unhealthy that's already been factory prepared. But if there isn't anything unhealthy in your house, you now have to go out of your way to get it. And since there's this additional obstacle in the way, you are more likely to just eat what's available. At first, this will feel weird as you'll crave unhealthy food. But since there's only healthy food around, you will be forced to eat it. And once you eat, the cravings usually go away. The more you repeat this process, the more you'll get used to it. And over time, you'll crave unhealthy food less and less, until eventually it becomes your default behavior to eat healthy. Now, if your goal is to eat healthier, just having healthy food around might not be enough. You still need to prepare the food, which requires some effort. That's why it might be wise to prepare your meals ahead of time. You can have a few days worth of meals already made, so whenever you get hungry, you just grab the food from the fridge and you are good to go. Another thing you can do is cut up some vegetables and have them in a container ready to eat. This way, when you're hungry, you can just grab a handful and start munching right away. Whatever is most convenient, you are most likely to do. So try to make your healthy options as convenient as possible. If you are constantly distracted while working or studying, put your phone in another room. Having to get up and retrieve it will create an obstacle for you to use it. And because of this obstacle, you will be less likely to give in to temptation. In the long run, this will improve your focus and productivity, since you won't be constantly distracted. If you really need your phone for work purposes, another thing you can do is delete all the distracting apps, such as social media, games, and other time wasters. Or you can put them in a folder that's difficult to reach, so it takes more effort to open them. Another option is to create different user accounts on your computer, one for work and one for leisure. This way, when you are on your work account, all your usual distractions aren't present, making it easier to focus. The important takeaway here is that you want to have as much control over your behavior as possible, rather than having your surroundings dictate your actions. Try to examine your surroundings and figure out how you can adjust them so that your behavior aligns with your goals. What you want to do is make good behaviors as easy and convenient as possible, while making bad behaviors as difficult and inconvenient as possible. The beauty of the 20-second rule is that you can apply it to pretty much anything in your life, whether it's breaking bad habits or forming good ones. This simple strategy can be a game changer. In Stoicism, self-discipline is a core principle. The Stoics believed in living a life of virtue, which meant being in control of one's actions and reactions. By adjusting your environment to make virtuous actions easier and less virtuous actions harder, you're aligning with this Stoic principle. You're taking control of your life and making it easier to do the right thing even when you don't feel like it. Remember, the key is to take small, actionable steps. Changing your environment in minor ways can lead to significant improvements in your habits over time. It's not about making drastic changes all at once, but rather about making gradual adjustments that make your desired actions more effortless. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. I hope you found this video helpful and that it gave you some ideas on how to make positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who might benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Tube for more videos on practical wisdom and self-improvement. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay motivated, and remember to live intentionally.